EJ Antoni, Heritage Foundation, public finance economist, is here. This has been a conversation, EJ, for quite some time now, that if the package is broken up into two CRs, the taxes come later, it could be towards the end of 2025, Americans will suffer. What does it take to get this all into one CR and pass it quickly?
Well, Jackie, I think we just got to get our priorities straight, right? People need to realize, I should say, the folks in Congress need to realize that people need tax relief, and they need it now. We're facing a genuine cost of living crisis, and getting taxes down is one of the best ways to actually get the cost of living down for so many of these folks. And if we don't get this legislation across the finish line in one way, shape, or form, then you're going to see exactly what you just said, American families facing a double-digit percentage tax increase. It's not a good situation. Again, we need to get this done, and it needs to be the number one priority. It wasn't in the first Trump admin, if you remember, and it was an absolute miracle that they got it done at all.
Speaking of taxes, Steve Forbes and Stephen Moore have a great op-ed in the Wall Street Journal this morning advocating for a 15% flat tax. What do you make of that?
I think it's a great idea. You know, the tax code is so insanely overcomplicated. You know, if you include not only what's in statute, but then also the regulations that surround the tax code, it is a multiple of the combined word count of the Bible, all the Harry Potter books, you name it, Lord of the Rings. Wow. You can throw all these, War and Peace, throw all these famous pieces of literature and sacred scripture together, and the tax code is actually much larger than all of that. So anything we can do to simplify that, to get away from that, is a good thing, and moving to a flat rate with no deductions would be the best way to do it.
I don't know if Rob Gronkowski is a literature guy, but I think I saw him post on X that he wants a simpler tax code as well. So everybody's on board with this, English majors and not. Let me ask you about this, EJ. The debt ceiling apparently kicks in at midnight tonight. You think this is a pretty big deal and could hit us in terms of policy right away? What's your thought on this?
Well, it was an absolute disaster, right? The way they designed this deal so that they would suspend the debt ceiling until right now, and then it would instantly kick in. And not only is it restarting, but it's starting at the current debt limit, Brian. In other words, the Treasury won't be able to borrow anymore after January 1. Now, fortunately, we are anticipating several big revenue hits to come onto the Treasury's books, so that'll give us some more breathing room. But still, you're going to have to start using extraordinary measures sometime in the month of January. And that's particularly problematic when Janet Yellen has run down the cash account of the Treasury by about $1 trillion since Biden took office. So there's a lot less wiggle room here, I think, than people realize. Now, again, you have many months with extraordinary measures, but that's not the kind of pressure you want to put on the incoming Treasury Secretary.
EJ, the housing market's been troubling for quite some time when it comes to the overall economy. This is something Trump is going to focus on next year. Bill Ackman is suggesting that he might privatize Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Walk me through how that would change things materially and whether the impact would be substantially more positive.
Well, much like the debt ceiling deal, you know, having these quasi-public-private institutions is something that never should have happened in the first place. But here we are. So how do we unring that bell, so to speak? I think you need to slowly introduce this idea back into markets that, look, we are no longer going to privatize profits and socialize losses, which is effectively what happens with these companies, these, again, quasi-public-private entities. So I think you need to set a future date when you're effectively going to return all of these things to the private market. And that's going to do a couple of key positive things for those markets, not the least of which is it is going to make investors, I think, much more aware of what they are investing in. What I mean by that is they're going to actually want to look into what is the quality of the mortgage-backed securities that we're investing in? Where exactly is our money going when it enters the black box that is Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac? That is something that didn't happen in the lead up to the housing crisis, and that was a key contributor to that crisis.
EJ, set us up for people at home trying to figure out the outlook for the economy in 2025. I looked at your latest post on X, and you say Manufacturing is still contracting as we're closing out 2024. People, though, keep hearing that the economy is expected to improve next year. How did the fundamentals look to you?
The fundamentals right now are not great. Now, that's not to say that expectations and future sentiment are doing bad. They're not. They're doing tremendous ever since November, actually, right after Trump got elected again. All of those future-looking indicators have soared. There's no doubt about that. The problem is future expectations, that idea, whether it's consumer sentiment or business sentiment, those hopes do not pay the bills today. And so for a lot of businesses, they're still in trouble today. A lot of consumers are still strapped today. And it's going to take us a while to work our way out of the hole that we've dug over the last several years with failed public policies, whether that's the massive debt on the federal government side or the massive debt on the consumer side, where we have over $1 trillion just in credit card debt, even though the interest rate on those credit cards is at a record high. So again, it's going to take, I think, quite a while to work our way out of this hole. It's not that I'm bearish on everything. I'm very, very hopeful about the future of this country and the future of the American consumer. But again, it's going to take us some time, especially when we start finding out about all of the economic data that we've had so far that has been overinflated, like the jobs numbers. As that truth continues to come out, again, we'll realize that we're in pretty bad shape.
EJ, you do a great job of living in the sober reality of things, and that's what I appreciate about you. But you said you're not a bear on everything. So I want, for 2025, EJ, what are you most excited about for the economy? What should we be excited about for the economy?
Well, I think, Brian, great question. I think energy is definitely a sector that people want to look at, particularly the small producers. Don't overlook, the little guy here, because the deregulation agenda of the incoming Trump administration will actually help the small producers more than the larger ones. Everyone will benefit, but the small producers will benefit the most. If you still want a blue chip name, though, then you can always go with something like an ExxonMobil, because they do so much, not just drilling, but so much refining. So it doesn't matter in their instance who's actually getting the product out of the ground. ExxonMobil's still going to process it.
EJ, getting into markets a little bit for us there,
stock
Jack.
picks.
That was kind of fun. We haven't done that with EJ yet. Well done, sir.
That was great. EJ Antoni, always great to see you. Happy New Year, good sir. And we will see you in 2025.
For sure.
My favorite line is "See you next
Happy New Year."
See you next year.